Oh, stuff gets in the way, doesn't it ever? And there's two kinds of stuff. You've probably noticed this. Yeah. There's other people's stuff and life and things that happen and people who say they're going to do something and then they don't. And how much control do we have over that?
None.
Absolutely zero. But then there's the other stuff that really gets in the way, and that is located between your ears. Yeah? Your own stuff. How much control do we have over that?
Everything.
Yes. But how much do we act as if we've got 100% control over it? 0%. Who talks to themselves? I don't mean this sort of out loud when you're shopping and, doing all of that. But it's constant, isn't it? That little voice in your head that just runs us all the time. Our thoughts, what we think. And yabba's on. Day after day after day, from waking through our sleep, it's just there constantly. And the big mistake that we all make is that we believe it. We believe what the little voice is saying. It's nonsense. It isn't what you have or who you are or where you are or what you're doing that makes you happy or unhappy. It's what you think about. And we all know that, there's what happens and then there's how we respond to it. And we see people in dire circumstances, laughing, smiling, being upbeat, looking for the positive. And we see people who seem to have everything, and they're miserable as sin and complaining all the time. And you think, huh? And yet we do that ourselves. We're kind of wired. The ego is wired to look after us. That's what it's there for, to keep us safe. So it's constantly looking for what's wrong and sending us that information. It's bombarding us all the time with the dangers, with the what ifs, that'll make you look stupid, and all of that nonsense going on all the time. That's what we hear, that's what we take on board, that's what we focus on, that's what we live out of, rather than standing back and getting in touch with what we really, really, truly believe. It's the Buddha. I mean, you've heard all this, but it is so true. We are what we think. But we give our power away around our thoughts. Our thoughts run us, rather than thinking, this thought is not working for me. This thought is making me miserable or fearful or disempowered or a victim. Therefore, I will change the thought. And you know how easy it is to change thoughts. You can do it in a heartbeat. But we don't most of the time. 50,000 thoughts a day. That's what is going on all the time. Millions and millions, 50,000 thoughts a day, not millions. And most of them are negative. 95%. And the really interesting thing is that most of these negative thoughts are the same day after day after day. I'm too fat, I'm not good enough at this, I can't do this, they don't like me, it's too hard, it'll never work, blah, 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 over and over again. We all do it, don't we? Most of the time. And every single thought that we're thinking affects us physically. Well, this is the reason why positive thoughts create serotonin in the brain. Serotonin is released, and serotonin is a conducting chemical. So in the brain, it helps all those little synapses to fire and to connect. So you get stronger impulses moving through them, and that makes you more resourceful. If you're in a positive state of mind, if you're focused on a solution, you can start getting ideas, and we call it brainstorming, don't we? We're picking ideas up. And the opposite happens when you're in a negative place, because instead of serotonin, you get cortisol released into the brain, and cortisol is very insulating. So instead of connections being made within the brain, things get stopped, you get stuck. And that's why when you're in a negative place, when you're focused on the problem rather than on the solution, you just hit blank walls, dead ends. Less resource, weaker impulses, less resourceful. Instead of a place of gratitude when, you're on a roll and things are happening, it's just like everything's going wrong. The whole world is up against you because you're focusing on what you don't want. The self-confidence cycle. What you're saying to yourself, the thoughts in your brain, what you're focusing on, that creates your self-image, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about the world. And out of that, of course, arises the way you act, the way you behave, the words that come out of your mouth, which gives you results. Yeah? Where do most people start?
Results.
Yeah. Absolutely. The results are rubbish, so your self-talk goes downhill. So your self-image goes downhill. So you take little action or poor action or negative action, which gets you even more results, and it's a downward spiral. Where successful people start is with their self-talk. All begins with that, because that's the thing that you've got control over every time. You can change your self-talk in a heartbeat, improve your self-image, take action, take positive action, take massive action, which of course gives you the results. So a good way of checking, little litmus test, when people say to you, as they do all the time, how are you, how's it going, how's your new business going? What is actually coming out of your mouth? Because the Brits are rubbish at this, aren't they? How are you doing? Oh, not so bad, can't complain, could be worse.
Yeah.
You hear it all the time, don't you? And you get around forever people and you say, oh, how are you? Fantastic! And you think, yeah, good on you. Even though you kind of know, well, maybe it's not that brilliant. But people have taken control and they're saying, yeah, I'm feeling good, because that's what I'm going to focus on. But even more important than what's coming out of your mouth is what's going on in here. What are you saying about yourself to yourself? And there's an awful lot of this goes on the choir, isn't there? Who can fess up to some of this going on in here? All of them. Yeah. If others could hear your thoughts, would they be shocked about what you say about yourself? And I think most of us would be. Most of us, how often have you thought, why are you being so hard on yourself about somebody else? And yet, do you say that to yourself when you're beating up on yourself? Particularly when you're stuck in that self-confidence cycle and you've had a few weeks where nothing good seems to be happening and you're spiralling down when the results are bad and you think, oh, this is rubbish, I can't do this, it's never going to work. It doesn't work, I don't work, I'm not good enough, I haven't got what it takes, blah, blah, blah. And how motivated and inspired do you feel to take action, to pick the phone up, to organise an event, to get on a call? You don't. And a lot of this comes from way back when as well. It's not just that you're choosing to think right now, it's part of that tried and tested routine of thinking that has been going on for years. Some of it since childhood. Some of it has been going on for some of us for more than half a century of, I can't do this, I'll never be any good at this, because something got implanted when we were 4, 5, 6 years old. But this is interesting. People who believe in themselves, people who've taken control of their self-talk. Isn't it lovely? But what I'm trying to get across to you, which is something that I have to keep telling myself, is that it's always a choice. This isn't in our genes. It's not given to us when we were born. It's something that we have control over every second of the day. People who have taken control who say they believe in themselves because they choose to believe in themselves. They live longer, they have better health, they make more money, and they're happier. Now, who wouldn't choose that? So why is it that as human beings, we choose to feel sorry for ourselves? We choose to moan and complain. Now, it's partly a cultural thing. I mean, the Brits are kind of like that. We say, oh, mustn't moan, mustn't complain. And yet that's what we do all the time. You walk down the high street or into any group, people are moaning. That's why coming into Forever is such a... It's wonderful, isn't it? Go to Success Day, and there are little pockets of it occasionally, but in general, people are upbeat, and they're choosing deliberately because they've had enough. Words are really, really powerful. And this is one way that you can catch yourself. Cease talking about problems. Problems are always opportunities. Stop saying I have to and make it a choice. We all use the ought to, should, must, have to phrase quite a lot. It's very disempowering. So when you hear yourself saying that, when that's coming out your mouth, oh, I've got to do this. I choose to do this. Don't talk about setbacks and struggles. Talk about challenges and adventures. When things are going badly in the business, when you're not getting the results, see it as a challenge, as an opportunity. Rather than thinking this is too hard, think, I will work out a way to do it. It's not my fault. What a victim place that is. If it's not your fault, it's nothing to do with me, it's not my fault. You have no power to change anything. Whereas responsibility, which is not taking the blame, it's just taking responsibility for how you are. No hoping, got a plan to. No trying either. I will, I commit to, I intend to. Don't ask what will I do. Tell yourself you will handle it. What do you want, cortisol or serotonin? Do you want solutions or do you want brick walls? Don't say it's terrible, say it's a growth opportunity. Don't say I'm knackered. How often do you come home in the evening and think, oh God, I'm knackered? And you tell yourself that. How does your body respond? You feel more tired. You slump in a chair, take a couple of bee pollen, and just imagine to yourself, however physically exhausted I am, if somebody came in right now and said, you've just won £10,000, how would you feel? Instant energy. Don't say I don't know, say I will find out. Don't say I've never done that before. I've never sponsored 3 people in one day. Say this time I will. Don't say I hate doing this. Tell yourself you're getting better at it. Don't say I'm not as good as, comparing yourself to somebody else. And that is really poisonous. And it's really easy to do in this business. Because as much as we cheer other people and are delighted in their successes, there's still a little bit of us that thinks, oh, I'm not as good as them, they're doing better than me. Think, I'm going at my own pace, this is my journey. I will get there. So these are just little clues along the way. When you hear those words coming out, that's a moment when you can think, I can change this word. And just changing the word, reframing it in your own mind will change everything. You've all heard that Henry Ford phrase, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't. And it is so true. If you tell yourself you can't do it, you're setting yourself up to fail. You may not know how you're going to succeed, but create that as a possibility and live into that. We all know having a great coach is really, really important. Finding a good mentor, somebody who will cheer you on and inspire you and feed back the good stuff to you, help you get a handle on the negative stuff, help you move forward. Are you doing that for yourself? Most of us treat ourselves worse than we would treat our own worst enemy. We're not kind and loving to ourselves. So are you programming yourself for failure, or are you programming yourself for success? If you were coaching yourself, what would you say? If you could get out of that cycle of negative thinking for a moment, what would you feed back to yourself? Are you telling yourself why you're going to succeed, like a good coach would, whether it's a business coach or a sporting coach? Or are you telling yourself why you might fail? A person who doubts himself, and who doesn't, but think about it, he is like a man who would enlist in the ranks of his enemies and bear arms against himself. And yet we do that all the time. But once you recognise that cycle, you have a choice. You can stop yourself, and the trick is to catch yourself. Most of our self-talk is focused on the past. It comes from the past and our experiences in the past. Even when we're projecting into the future, it is so coloured by our past experience. Most of our self-talk is focused on weakness and failure, not on our strengths. It's focused on the outcome, the field. Most of our self-talk is focused on opinions, on beliefs, because that's all that beliefs are opinions, not on the truth. Belief is a really interesting thing. We live out of our beliefs. They're the water that we swim in. But they're not the truth. Because have you noticed that beliefs can change in a moment when you get different evidence? We can change our mind about something that we've held true for a long, long time. Suddenly, we get convincing evidence and it changes. Most self-talk is focused on the stuff outside of us that we have no control over. And most of it is focused on achieving something that actually isn't attainable. Focusing on the next little baby step in front of us is much more effective than on the long-term goal. That can call to us, but if we focus on that, as Andy said, it doesn't create any impetus, any momentum, because it's so far off, it's unattainable. Past-based thinking, mostly based on beliefs that were installed in the first 5-6 years of your life. That's when it's all laid down. So many of the beliefs that we live out of now, what's right, what's wrong, what we can do, what we can't do, all went in when we were children. You can let go of it. Seen this before? Anyone?
A couple of times.
A couple of times. It pops up now and again. But it's actually at the heart of all of this. There's no mistake that it's right at the beginning of the business presentation and right at the end of the business presentation. Because it's through changing our thinking that we get freedom. And here's the trick. Simply noticing. If you notice the negative or the disempowering thought, or the thought that stops you, or the thought that makes you feel bad, and that's the clue, notice the feeling. If you feel bad, stop, question. Can you flip it? Can you change it? Can you put in a better feeling thought? Thought stopping. A few little tricks here. Switch your focus. When you get stuck on that negative thinking and those loops that go around, I don't know about anybody else, but they're particularly bad between 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, if you wake up and you get stuck in a loop and you know you don't want to be thinking this because it's not helping you get back to sleep, it's not moving you forward at all. Thought stopping. Switch the focus. Consciously choose to think about something else. Tender talk it. Like you would to a child who was upset. Say it's all right, it's okay. Doesn't have to be that way. Be kind and gentle to yourself. That doesn't work. Tough talk it. Kick yourself up the proverbial. Or get into somebody else's thinking. Channel Andy Waring. Channel Jane Leach. Channel the Buddha. Channel whoever is your personal hero. Think, well, this isn't working, my way of thinking. How would somebody else think about it? Or do something that you will enjoy. Put some music on and dance, or sing, or, I don't know, whatever you enjoy. Make yourself laugh. Pick up the phone to a friend that you can call at 3 in the morning. We've all got one friend we could call at 3 in the morning, surely. Well, if it's in Australia, that's fine. But do something. So the trick is recognise that this way of thinking is not doing me any good. It's producing cortisol, it's stopping me coming up with solutions, it's making me feel rubbish, I'm in that downward spiral, gotta change it, do something about it. Olympiads, sports people are phenomenal at this. It's as much a part of their discipline to change their thinking and get the right mental attitude as the physical training is. This is from a gold medal swimmer. It takes mental discipline to keep certain thoughts out of your head and put certain thoughts in your head. You have conscious control over that. It takes practice and it takes repetition. But pretty soon it becomes almost habitual to keep negative thoughts out or identify negative thoughts and keep positive ones in. It doesn't happen by magic, it happens by practice and repetition. And remembering that it's always a choice. The trick is, if you're feeling bad, change it. Don't feel bad and feel a victim, feel sorry for yourself, and just keep going down the spiral. Turn the volume down. Any negative, undermining, disempowering, critical, abusive, condemnatory, unloving, harsh thoughts, just boot them out and replace with love, gratitude, affirmation, whatever works for you, or a bit of a song and a dance. Doesn't really matter. Nourish the mind like you would your body. The mind cannot survive on junk food. And that's what negative thinking is. It is poison for the mind and for the body. So it's up to you. It is your choice. You're in control of this. And that's the really good news. That's the really exciting, empowering bit. So, I think I'm bang on time. Yay! So, I'm just going to finish with a little story about the wolves. You've probably heard this one. Little boy says to his granddad, who I think was an American Indian, it's kind of got that feel about it. No, the granddad says to the little boy, there are 2 wolves inside each of us. One wolf is anger, fear, jealousy, hatred, cowardice, and the other wolf is love, gratitude, justice, security. And the little boy's looking, And the granddad said, and those wolves are fighting each other all the time. And the little boy says, and which one wins? And his granddad says, the one you feed. Your choice. Which one are you going to feed?